Hello, it's time. Time to talk about the Intellevision Amico. I'm just going to give kind of my overall thoughts on it because, well, I never pick sides for anything. I'm always like neutral. So I'm not gonna like shill for this thing, but I'm also not gonna like just completely shit on it, so to speak. That being said, let me talk about how I first found out about this thing. As someone who was born in the late 80s and grew up in the 90s, one of my favorite gaming mascots was Earthworm Jim. And, I still replay his old games, well, the first two in particular, and obviously like the HD remaster of the first game. And in recent years, we've seen a lot of these gaming mascots rise from their long slumber, so to speak. Obviously, what the hell's his name? Bubsy is a perfectly good example of this. So, a few years ago, I found out that Earthworm Jim was coming out with a new game, or they were making a new Earthworm Jim game. But then I started to hear that it would be exclusive to the Intellevision Amico, and so I'm like, oh, what's that? I was like, oh, it's a new console that's being made by Tommy Tallarico. Now, Tommy is a guy who I have no ill will towards Tommy. I know he's made some epic video game soundtracks over the years, like the Earthworm Jim games, the Wild Nine, Skeleton Warriors, the MDK games, Terminator on Sega CD, the list goes on. And I also remember him from that show on G4, the video game television network. Drawing a blank on the name of the show, but I remember he would do game reviews with some other guy who I'm also trying to blank on his name, but I remember from that show, I was like, oh, Tommy seems like a pretty cool guy. Like, at least what I could gather from that. And I liked him better than the other guy. Like, the other guy had really bad takes on things, or sometimes it just seemed like he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. Tommy seemed a little more level-headed, so to speak. But that being said, I also don't think Tommy is like this godlike person who's immune to criticism, because the thing is, even if, no matter how much you might like someone, or even if they've done some amazing things, that doesn't mean they're immune to criticism. People are still going to criticize them and their products. That's just the way it is. That's the reality of life. People will always criticize things. So, I was like, okay, so it's coming out for this new console, the Amico, and I was like, well, all right, like, maybe as time goes on, I'll kind of keep my eyes on it and everything, and then I was just like, when it, maybe I'll consider getting one or whatever, if Earthworm Jim looks good or whatever the case may be. But as time has gone on and I've looked more and more into it, and I'm just like, I don't know, I see a lot of red flags with this thing. Now, if people who are excited for it or looking forward to it, that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying you can't be excited for it. If you want to get it, then that's your decision. You don't have to go by what me or anyone else says. Like, if you're looking forward to it, you want to buy that thing, go ahead. It's your decision. It's your money. Do whatever the hell you want with it. But me personally, I'm just like, I don't know. There's too many red flags. Which, let me address that. The first one, well, one thing is the delays, which I don't think that's a huge deal, because there have been plenty of game consoles and video games especially that have had numerous delays, but eventually they'd be released and either they'd be really good or they'd be terrible. It kind of goes both ways with delays. I just rhymed. But probably the first red flag is that we still don't really know much about what this thing does, other than the fact that it plays video games and maybe a couple of other things. But it's like, there's no, and obviously, it's like, because the most common argument with a new product is like, oh, how do you know you haven't even played it yet and stuff, which, true. It's like, kind of like when people review bomb a game that they didn't play, or a movie they haven't seen. But with this, it's like we haven't seen any videos from Tommy or anyone who are like actually playing the console or testing out the controller. This is what it does. This is everything. There's none of that stuff. Nothing that. There's no demonstration videos or anything like that. Basically just teasers and a few little trailers and stuff. Like, that's it. There's no real, you know what I'm saying? That brings me to the next thing. Is the next red flag is the controller. When I look at that, I'm just like, I don't even know what it is. Like, I mean, the original Intellivision console was before my time, but I'm still familiar with it. Like, I know what the controller looks like and everything, and I think that's kind of what what they were going for here. But that's the thing, is that, and another thing about like controllers from that era, how they had like the ones with the numerical buttons, and then they have like the overlay, so it was like, oh, different buttons would do different things for the overlays. To be honest, I always thought that looked kind of cool. I mean, I always thought that was kind of cool. Like another good example was in the early 90s was the Atari Jaguar, which I never played, but I do remember. I vaguely remember it because I was a little kid then. But and I remember, it's like that particular version of Doom, has like an overlay for the controller, so it has like different pictures for the buttons that shows like all the different guns. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. So. And I've played like with other products that are from like the 80s and stuff that had like used overlays and stuff. So maybe it's just like my inner child talking. That it's like, I think that stuff is kind of cool. But with the Amico, it's just, I don't know. It's like weird. It has like it almost looks like a smartphone with the disc thing. And I'm just like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. That's weird to me because I've talked about this before, but I have nothing against gimmicky controllers, but I also think that they should be sold separately. Like, like a perfectly good example is the Wii U. The Wii U, the standard controller was the gamepad. I mean, maybe that's not a best example because the Wii U failed, but whatever. And then he had the Pro Controller, which is kind of like similar to an Xbox 360 controller in a way. So it's like, why is that sold separately? Like, why is you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, or the Super Nintendo came with standard controllers, and then you have like the mouse and the Super Scope, which were like gimmicky controllers, but they were sold separately, and there was games made specifically for them. Like, you didn't have to buy those. So it's like the same thing with the Amico. Couldn't it just come with a standard controllers, and then those like ones that look like a smartphone could be sold separately or something? I don't know. The next thing is the games, which I'll be honest, like, even though we've only seen like these little teasers and things here and there, I'll admit some of these games I do think look like they might be kind of fun, but they're not exactly what I would call like a console seller. It's not like this thing that's like, oh my god, that looks amazing, I have to buy this console. It's like, for example, people will buy a Nintendo console for Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, Animal Crossing. They'll buy a PlayStation console for God of War, Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man, Horizon. I think that's the name of that series, right? Or Xbox, they'll buy it for Halo, Gears of War, Forza, the occasional Rareware title. And I know obviously Xbox games are also released on PC, but that's beside the point. But the point is, these are games that, when we see, these are the games that make people like, I have to buy that console. Like, it's like, what does the Amico have? Like, nothing that's really, I'm not saying the games look bad or anything, but they're not exactly like must own or they don't, at least to me, don't look like must play titles, like, or must own titles. Like, I think some of them look kind of fun, but it's not like something that makes you, that's like, whoa, that I have to, that looks amazing, I have to buy this console. And that's another thing, like, is Tommy, another red flag, is that Tommy was saying that, it's like, this is going to be like a family console, it's going to be, something that, they can, like, bring the family together, like, to play in the living room or whatever. But, well, two things about that. One thing is that it's like, isn't that kind of what Nintendo does? Like, I mean, I'm not defending Nintendo or anything like he was. I mean, but it's like, I mean, because Nintendo has made a lot of stupid decisions over the years, and I'm not afraid to call them out on it. Even as much as I love, like, Nintendo, it's like I have like kind of a love-hate relationship. I love a lot of their games and products, but I hate a lot of their business decisions and other things. But anyway, Nintendo is like, Nintendo, whether you love them or hate them, you can't deny that they're the most recognized company in the video game industry. And, I think that's kind of why they always struggle with online, because they focus more on, like, local, like, family play and stuff. So it's like, that brings me back to the point. It's like, Tommy's saying, like, this is going to be a family console. So it's like, it almost seems like he's trying to compete with Nintendo. Maybe he isn't. I could be completely wrong about that, but it's just, that's what it feels like to me. Like, he's almost like trying to do the same thing as Nintendo does. Like, you're basically going up against a juggernaut, so to speak. And the other thing about that is that, well, let's be honest, most people don't even know what the Amico is. Like, a lot of, this is like by talking about, like, family and stuff, so you're talking about, like, kind of like how the Wii was, like, that was, I mean, I know I'm using Nintendo again, like, there was, something for, like, seniors and soccer moms and stuff, like, but a lot of people don't know about this thing, other than in the gaming community. A lot of people, like, family-oriented people, don't really know what this, never heard of this thing, they don't even know it exists. Well, technically it's not, doesn't yet, so to speak, but, and apparently it will be sold in stores, like, look, so, it is possible that if you see it at, like, Walmart or Target or Best Buy, like, with the, and it's possible that the occasional casual person might walk by it and say, like, oh, what's, we're looking at, like, the Xbox or PlayStation stuff and say, like, hey, what's this thing? Like, that is possible that could happen, but for the most part, most people don't really know about the Amico, so it's like, how can it be aimed at a demographic that doesn't really know about it? And lastly, I remember for their E3 when they did, like, they uploaded a video onto their YouTube channel where they showed, like, people, YouTubers. I'm not gonna throw shade at anyone. I'm not gonna put any names out there or anything, but people who were reacting to, like, the game teasers and trailers and stuff in the Amico, like, talking about how they were excited for it and stuff. And it's like, like I said, this was like it was a compilation that was uploaded to their YouTube channel. And out of curiosity, like I said, I'm not gonna throw shade at anyone, not gonna put any names out there, and I'm not, like, knocking them or anything, but out of curiosity, I looked at those YouTubers, and all of them were, like, small channels. Like, they had, like, 300 to 5,000 subscribers. Now, obviously, like, I'm not saying that, like, small channels are full of misinformation or anything. Like, I mean, there are plenty of small channels that are very underrated. Like, they'll have, they're very talented, or they have really good takes on things. But, like, if I was, I mean, I'm not a businessman or anything, and I'm not a game developer or anything, but if I was making a product, I think I'd want as many people, especially something like this, like a game console. If I was making a game console, I'd want to have as many eyes on it as possible. And here you're using, like small channels to praise the thing. Like, shouldn't you have, like, more well-known people praise it to get more, so you could get more and more eyes on it? Like, if you have, like, these small channels praising it, it's like, nobody's really gonna notice it or anything. Like, how it, I don't know. That just, I was like, something about that doesn't sit right with me. But, yeah. I'm sure there's probably more things, but that's all I can think of. So, that being said, what do you guys think of the Amico? Are you excited for it? Do you think, do you think it'll do well? Do you think it'll maybe flop or whatever the case may be? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.